Let us talk briefly about the New Millennium Church. We find ourselves here on earth, uniquely placed 2,000 years after Jesus Christ walked and breathed this exact recycled air. It is well documented that the first century church grew the kingdom of God exponentially. Even under the threat of constant persecution, the church not only flourished in the region in which Jesus lived, but they carried the message to all parts of the world, most notably directly into Rome in the midst of the Emperor Nero. Maybe this was because the church was so close to the crucifixion of Christ and his ministry was fresh. So fresh that distortions had not been so ingrained that they had begun to resemble reality. A massive display of this would have been a dispute over the Mosaic law of circumcision. During the period of the first century church, this issue threatened to split the church until Paul finally addressed it at the Council of Jerusalem, making a convincing argument that circumcision was not a necessary practice. And he also wrote the same to the Galatians, as circumcision had become a divisive issue in that region as well. This seems to be the point of the 21st century church. Though the conversation of homosexuality is a serious one, much to argue over, but serious nonetheless. Much like Paul and the first century church's decision to set aside an equally contentious issue so as to grow the church, let us set aside our agreements about homosexuality to save God's church and speak with Jesus-like clarity on issues where we know there is no disagreement. Because unlike the first century church, we as New Millennium Christians have been mommed on these issues, such as exploitation of the poor by corporations, refusing to pay livable wages when we know Jesus lived the proverb, whoever oppressed a poor man insults his maker, but he who is generous to the needy honors him. In a country that claims to be of the people, by the people, we have an unjust justice system filled with injustices. We created an environment where blacks are 14% of America's population, but nearly 50% of the country's prison population. Yet the church sits mum. Likewise, because we are the silent church, 1 in every 3 black children in the these United States, live in households that are plagued by food insecurities. This is without a doubt a critique on those of us who call ourselves 21st century Christians. Much like the first century church, if our church is to remain relevant, salty if I may, then we must not continue to allow trickery from the pulpit, telling us that if we prayed or paid enough, then we all can drive $100,000 cars. Instead, we must be as radical as Jesus about equity and social justice for the least amongst us. Have a great evening, but not before you think about it.